What you were just witnessing is the murder of Iryna Zarutska. Iryna Zarutska, forgive me if I'm mispronouncing her name, was a real refugee from Ukraine that escaped a war torn country to come to the United States of America. Guys, I'm going to say something that is not going to be politically correct, but I believe it's going to save your life. It's something that I've talked about before. Racial profiling could save your life. Racial profiling is good for your health. Nobody wants to say this. I'm going to talk about it. We're going to talk about two N words as well. No, not that N word for you real racists out there, but news and narrative. Why that's important. Fake black heroes, and why this story is not being covered in the media, in mainstream media, like it should. And that's because of news and narrative. We'll get into that. It's also because the media, the mainstream media, hates Donald Trump. They love chaos. They love crime in their cities. And I'll get into that as well. I'm going to make a case for the Second Amendment. Also, blacks are going to be targeted with real racism if this nonsense doesn't stop. And these people that let that freaking evil punk out of prison should be in prison themselves, or they should lose their freaking jobs, or they should be sued into oblivion and never allowed to work in a courtroom ever. This is the Carl Jackson Show. This is your daily dose of objective truth in a world of confusion and lies. Guys, here's what I'm going to do. This is not going to be an easy show, but I hope and pray that what I will do is save lives. And I'm going to offend some people. And guess what? I don't give a flip because this is important. This is important. I can honestly say, I think this is domestically speaking anyway. Subjects like this or this particular podcast is probably one of the most important podcasts I'll do, albeit it's not going to be that long, but I believe that it'll save some people's lives. And I mean this with all sincerity. Guys, I believe that Iryna Zarutska, and I'm not blaming her, please don't misunderstand that, would be alive if she had racially profiled. How could you say that? You sellout, you Uncle Tom. Stop lying. Stop pretending like you don't do it. Stop pretending like it hasn't perhaps saved your life or gotten you out of a jam. We've all done it. I did it in the hood. Guess what? Other people did it in the hood. Let me share something about racial profiling and why it's important. If I go, listen, I was born and raised in the hood. If I go back, I know who to avoid. I know what areas to avoid. I know what neighborhoods to avoid, and I know what people dress like and what I'm gonna avoid. I grew up in a gang-infested area in Los Angeles, California. And so racial profiling was very important. I knew that black gangsters sometimes would wear these big boots, different laces, maybe blue laces, maybe red laces. There were a couple of areas that I would try to avoid, even though, and my brothers as well, even though we knew our surroundings, we knew a lot of the people, we knew a lot of the gangsters, there were some places you had to avoid. I would avoid walking around big groups of black looking gangsters. I would avoid walking around big groups of Mexican looking cholos wearing their Nike Cortez, wearing their Dickie khakis, wearing their t-shirts, even with a crease on them, wearing a Dickies jacket. I would avoid them. Why? Because I wanted to save my life. I wanted to make sure that I was out of danger. If I went into an area where there were whites, there was a time where different places of Los Angeles or the outskirts of Los Angeles. I remember this town, Torrance. I remember somebody warned me, listen, if you go there, make sure you watch out for the skinheads. They literally have skinheads walking around at times. I don't believe it's like that anymore. Maybe, I don't know. But I can recall one time visiting there, and sure enough, there they were, the skinheads, wearing their jeans, wearing their kind of tight jeans, wearing their Doc Martens, wearing their suspenders, wearing their little black jackets, wearing their T-shirts with their shaved heads, so on, etc. And you know what I did? I didn't go that way. I went another direction. Now, she probably didn't have any idea because she had just left a war-torn country in Ukraine to escape to the United States, a real refugee, a legitimate refugee. Iryna Zarutska, 23 years old. She had just gotten off of work. It was about 10:30 p.m. This is Charlotte, North Carolina. So when I think of high crime, when I think of violent crime, I don't necessarily think of Charlotte, North Carolina, but come to find out, I'm wrong. That city has been run just like many of the cities across these United States that are infested with criminals, that are infected with crime, are run by Democrats. And that's why you're not hearing about this story. Because there's a real narrative. There's news and there's narrative. See, the left or the mainstream media, they don't want to report this story. They don't want to report that a black man by the name of DeCarlos Brown Jr. murdered this young, beautiful white woman because it would mess up their narrative. So they'll avoid reporting the news, allow people to place themselves in danger because Democrats don't want to lose elections. Democrats don't want to lose power. How sick, how evil, how twisted is that? Meanwhile, you got these fake narratives out there. Remember the Trayvon Martin narrative with George Zimmerman? You remember that? I remember hearing on local television. I live not too far away from there. I remember hearing on local television a white skinhead attack this young black man, end up shooting and killing him. Eventually, I saw the video all the way through. Eventually, I saw a picture of George Zimmerman, and I'm like, a skinhead? That fool isn't white. I thought he was Mexican at the time. He was also a Democrat that helped out young blacks, that helped out the Democrat Party. But the guy went nuts. He went cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs because his own people, and I'm talking about leftists, turned on him. Freddie Gray was another one. Oh, it's because of the police. The police were, the police are bad. The police broke his neck when he was in a paddy wagon. Come to find out, it was a bunch of black police officers up in Baltimore. And the guy literally tried to bang his head up against the wall and end up breaking his own neck. And these guys had to go through a court hearing to stay out of jail because the cops are bad. The cops are racist. And then we saw pictures of those cops and they were black. It's because the media has a narrative, because overwhelmingly the media is filled with a bunch of left wingers. And then we've got the George Floyd riots. I'm sorry. I know many of you out there may believe it. I don't. Derek please watch. I believe it's Minneapolis burning. I forget the exact name of it. Derek Chauvin is completely innocent. He did not kill George Floyd. George Floyd died of a drug overdose. There's plenty of evidence. Go out and get that checked out. Michael Brown. Michael Brown was another one. Ferguson. You guys remember Ferguson? Remember Ferguson when Michael Brown literally attacked a police officer, jumped into his squad car. I mean, just bowed up on the police officer. The police officer's life was absolutely destroyed. You had the Ferguson riots, and eventually you got the Ferguson effect. You guys know what the Ferguson effect is? The Ferguson effect was police officers were scared to police in predominantly black neighborhoods or minority neighborhoods where there was a bunch of crime. And so as a result of the Ferguson effect, more black people end up dying. Guys, this is a case for 2A. There's no way, as Gabe and I were talking before I got online, there's no way you're going to stop a criminal that big, that insane, that evil. That fool had been in and out of jail 14 times. He had spent 5 years in prison. His mother even tried to get him institutionalized. He got out of prison and just a couple months later beat up on his sister, and the guy was still let out by these social justice warriors that exist in these blue cities. Why? Because they think blacks are being treated unfairly by the system. You are the system, you freaking morons. And you're getting more blacks killed, you're getting more minorities killed, and you just got Iryna Zarutska murdered and brutally stabbed viciously in the neck 3 times. You see how petite that girl was? Every single one of the attorneys and judges of all involved in this case, these laws have to change. These people need to be held criminally or at least civilly liable. They should lose their jobs and they should have their pantsuit off. They're just, in my opinion, they're just as guilty as for Iryna Zarutska's murder as DeCarlos Brown Jr. Just as guilty. And you know what's going to happen? And you already see it happening online. All this is doing is causing more racism. This is causing animus. Because white people are, and rightfully so, are getting sick and tired of being called the racists, or being called the murderers, all this kind of nonsense. when what's happening and what we're seeing over and over again is there is a problem with the black criminal element. And guys, it's only 5% of the population, if that. The vast majority of black Americans just want the American dream like the rest of you. But the reason why the media won't report this story is because Donald Trump is right. Our blue cities have a major crime problem, and they want to make sure that he's not proven right, even if it means people like Iryna Zarutska will lose their life.